Welcome into another episode of Locked On Phillies. And in today's episode, we're recapping a very special night at Citizens Bank Park. This is the romanticism of baseball, and it was on full display in Philadelphia as Rhys Hoskins made his return. And by the way, the Phillies found their way to another win. So we'll break all down what happened last night at Citizens Bank Park. Also, we're going to preview Game 2 of the Phillies series with the Brewers. If they can lock up the series win, that'll be big for the conversation about beating good teams. And we have an award and an anniversary to talk about. All of that on today's episode.
You are Locked On Phillies, your daily Philadelphia Phillies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, this is Locked On Phillies. I'm Connor Thomas, your host. Thank you so much for checking us out. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Please make sure you're rating, reviewing, subscribing to the YouTube. All of that really helps us out here on Locked On Phillies. I really appreciate everyone who's done that already and everyone who's going to do that. And today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. From brakes to exhaust kits and beyond, eBay Motors has over 122 million parts to keep your ride or die alive. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to bring home that big win. So keep your vehicle alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit. Only available to U.S. customers. I don't know how I'm going to be able to fit in everything from last night's game in a single podcast, but we're going to try here. So we're jumping right into it. It was an awesome night at Citizens Bank Park last night. Like, I don't think it could have gone better in any circumstance or from any point of view than what happened at Citizens Bank Park last night. So the big storyline going into the game was, of course, the return of Rhys Hoskins to Philadelphia. And there are levels to this. It's not just that he's a former player that played here for a while, right? 7 years with the Philadelphia Phillies. Like, it's not just that. There's so much more that goes into the emotion of this city with Rhys Hoskins. On top of playing here for a while, he was a really good player here for a while. People will think about the defense and they'll think about some cold streaks and they'll say, yeah, was he really like a great player here? And say what you want about like all-star nods or anything like that. Oh, doesn't have a World Series, whatever. Like, you have to understand, Rhys Hoskins was a really good player for the Phillies. He was an emotional leader in the clubhouse, which was very important for the team where they were at. I have credited before, and I will partially credit again Rhys Hoskins for being the real Kickstarter to all of this stuff, right? So let's go back. Rhys Hoskins comes up as a rookie, and he's a monster. He goes on this crazy tear for like the first month he's up. And people are like, oh, this is the next great hitter in baseball. No, he didn't quite live up to that level, but it was impossible to. But from that moment, you were like, oh, okay, either this is Dominic Brown again, or we found somebody who could be a guy for us. And it turns out that Rhys Hoskins did have significantly more staying power. So he turns into this great player in an era of Phillies baseball where you're in the middle of a decade-long playoff drought. And he kind of starts to breathe life back into the franchise. Not totally by himself, but he's a big part of it. Him, Nola, some of these guys coming up, homegrown guys, that you're like, okay, we have a little something here. Also, remember when Bryce Harper made his decision to come here and play in Philadelphia, a lot of it had to do with the hundreds of millions of dollars he was paid and his belief in the city and the fan base and not Dave Dombrowski, Matt Klentak at the time, but more John Middleton, right? And the ownership and how this franchise is run. But another big part of it, and it was credited at the time, him and Rhys Hoskins are close, good friends. And playing alongside Rhys Hoskins was something that Bryce Harper was looking forward to being able to do. Rhys Hoskins initially was part of the reason Bryce Harper was attracted to play here. Bryce Harper is the reason a lot of players have been attracted to play here since. And you could argue that without Rhys, maybe you don't get Bryce. And without Bryce, obviously you don't have all this. So that's a huge part of it. And then we talk about like the playoff exploits and how Rhys Hoskins had the bat spike and big moments and huge home runs against the Braves. Like, that bat spike is the absolute memorable moment of everything outside of Bryce Harper's Bedlam at the Bank home run. Like, short of hitting the home run to send the team to the World Series, that is the biggest of this era, the biggest playoff moment for the Philadelphia Phillies. It just is. It's replayed everywhere. You can't go anywhere without seeing that at some point in some type of montage of big home runs or hype sports moments or biggest moments in Phillies history. Like that, it can't be overstated how important that home run was and the tone that it set for the Philadelphia Phillies. So he has all that. But the part where the emotions get complicated, or normally when those players leave your organization, oh, you got to trade them because they haven't been good. They choose to sign somewhere else. Your ownership refuses to pay them, so there's some kind of animosity there. They, I don't know, didn't play well enough, so you cut ties. Like, there's a lot of different reasons for leaving. But unfortunately for Rhys Hoskins, he got replaced kind of by Bryce Harper because Harper had the Tommy John. He had to play first, and that was all after Rhys Hoskins tore his ACL last year at the start of spring training. He didn't get a goodbye. He didn't. The last time he played at Citizens Bank Park prior to last night was the final game at home of the World Series back in 2022. Like, that sounds crazy because that feels so long ago, but that's how long it's been since Rhys Hoskins has been in front of the Philadelphia fans in South Philly. And not having that year to kind of come to terms with him leaving, I think, is also a huge part of it. Not to mention, like, how great of a person he is, how big he was in the community, what him and his wife did, like, for charities. I mean, buying beers for fans. Just can't say enough good things about Rhys Hoskins, who he is as a person, who he is as a ball player, all of that stuff. So that all leads into the emotion for tomorrow night. And that's all before we even said a word about the game. But that is why this is such a powerful moment. And Rhys Hoskins got an amazing ovation during his first at bat in the second inning. And it was just flat out, I mean, it really kind of tugged at the heartstrings. Now, I wasn't crying, but Rhys Hoskins seemed close to tears, if not shedding a couple. And there, I'm sure, people in the ballpark that felt very moved by what he had done for this city. And that was a great moment. He pops out in that at bat. Okay, cool. Let's go into the game. We'll get back to how Rhys Hoskins made his impact on it. But that was supposed to be the moment, right? That's what everyone waited for. And now you move on. You're like, okay, it's time for the game. And the game was something. Zach Wheeler was absolutely dominant last night. Goes 7 innings. He ended up allowing only 1 earned run, more on how that earned run was given up in a second. But Wheeler was his typical dominant self. And it was really impressive because he had a home plate umpire that was not giving anything off the plate. Like, a tight zone, and he worked around it anyway. He scattered 5 hits. He had 6 strikeouts. He did walk 3, which is not great to see, but he only allowed 1 run on a home run. So Wheeler was great. In the later parts of the game, Jeff Hoffman locked down in a 2-run game. Jose Alvarado locked down in a 2-run game. Like, the Phillies pitching was outstanding. The Phillies defense was outstanding. And also a guy that I'm just going to get in here. He deserves significantly more than I'm going to be able to give him in the time restraints of this podcast. But David Dahl last night, he was activated. He replaces Brandon Marsh, who has a minor injury to his hamstring. Doesn't sound too serious, but you need someone to play the outfield. And David Dahl, not only does he get called up, he gets told he's starting in left field. So the next thing you know, hey, you got to get some at-bats in, kid. Not kid, because he's played in the major league level before. He's 30 years old. He's a former All-Star. So there's pedigree there. And he was hitting well over 300 in the minors in AAA Lehigh. So there's belief that he could be a major league hitter because he has been before. Just some injuries have kind of changed the trajectory of his career. He comes up, ropes a single first at bat, second at bat, goes yard. Scores a run. The first time on the bases, obviously scores a run with a home run. He accounted for 2 of the Phillies' 3 runs. That is the depth of this team. That is amazing to see what guys can do coming up. It's everybody. Cody Clemens, Edmundo Sosa, Rojas when you need it, Pache when you need it, Stubbs when you need it. Whit Merrifield needs to step up more. But, like, the depth of this team and this organization, Spencer Turnbull coming in to start the year, just being as good as he was starting. And we had our conversation, if you want to listen to yesterday's episode, about whether or not he should be inserted back into the rotation over Taijuan Walker. Like, the depth was on display. David Dahl, what a moment for him. He was overshadowed by the Rhys Hoskins stuff, but that's just typical 2024 Philadelphia Phillies. Every guy they trot out there works. Everything they try to do seems to play in the best case scenario. Like, when you're good, you're good. And the Philadelphia Phillies are good. But let's talk about now, because we know they won the game 3-1, the other Rhys Hoskins moments. First, we had a little bit of an intro. His second at bat, he comes up and he walks, typical Rhys Hoskins walk, working the count, steals second on JT Realmuto. And Hoskins peers in, takes his helmet off, and stares in at JT. kind of like mocking him, taunting him, not in like in a way that people normally taunt on a baseball diamond, which will get you thrown at, but obviously friendly stuff. And that's a great moment. And then as poetic as baseball is, right, you then have a line drive single to center field. Rojas fields it, comes up, does the old janitor throw. Shout out Coach Kent Murphy. And just hoses Rhys Hoskins at home. JT Realmuto makes the play, makes the tag, gives him a little bit of trash talk back. The dueling butt slaps between them. They both give each other a slap on the hindquarters. It's obviously all fun between friends. A big moment in the game, but what are the chances you taunt JT, then JT gets a chance to tag you out on a great throw from Rojas? Even better. And if you think that's poetic, well, then the last at bat of the game for Rhys Hoskins, he faces Zach Wheeler, 2 outs in the 7th inning. Zach Wheeler's close to going 7 full without allowing a run. The next thing you know, Rhys Hoskins puts one in the seats. There were some boos. There were some cheers. I talked all morning on Sports Talk Radio about why are Phillies fans cheering for someone who was doing something that was hurting their team's chances to win. Rhys is a special player. It's special circumstances. Anyone who cheered Rhys Hoskins, I think you are well within your right to do that. The emotional connection he'll have to this city for a long, long time is more important than a solo home run in a game you still won in the month of June, especially when the team is this good. It's just such a poetic thing, the way everything went down last night, especially with the home run. You couldn't have scripted it better if you were a Phillies fan who was rooting for Rhys Hoskins. He gets his home run. He gets his ovation. He gets a fun moment with former teammate JT Realmuto, and the Philadelphia Phillies win the game and still look really good. So a great day at the ballpark, in my opinion. Some people might be annoyed that Phillies fans cheered for Rhys Hoskins hitting that home run. No, I get it. I didn't cheer. I wouldn't have cheered, but I'm not going to fault anyone who did because of what that guy means to the city, and I know how this fan base feels about him. So a fun night at the Yard. A lot of special things. Hard to fit that all in. But life moves on. Baseball moves on, and you got another game tonight. So coming up, we're going to talk about how the Philadelphia Phillies can get back to a little bit more reality of the baseball season. It's not going to feel as special the second time with Rhys Hoskins. They'll still get an ovation from people who were at the game that weren't at yesterday's game, but it's not going to feel as special this time around. Now it's just back to business, and how do you beat the Brewers for the second straight game? Well, we'll talk about that coming up as we continue today's episode of Locked On Phillies. And let's talk about FanDuel, because it's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL. You got the final set, Edmonton facing off against Florida in hockey. And then when you look over at the basketball side, Boston, Dallas, 2 great matchups. And you got a way to win some money on it. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. You can also do baseball, of course. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Let's discuss game 2 now of the Phillies matchup with the Brewers, and the not to be lost in there. I know there's probably a handful of people out there that hate, listen, or whatever, have happened upon this podcast and are not a Phillies fan, and they know the narrative of, the Phillies don't beat any good teams. Brewers came into that game 13 games over 500. How's that for beating a team that's actually good, leading their division, 7-game lead in the NL Central? Yeah, the Phillies can beat good teams too. They're really, really good. But winning the series furthers that argument. So what can the Philadelphia Phillies do tonight, 6:40 p.m. first pitch again, to assure that they do win this series? Cristopher Sanchez is on the mound. He's going to be facing off against Colin Ray. The just numbers matchup, Sanchez, a 2.83 ERA. He's quietly been really, really good for the Phillies this year. The 3-3 record doesn't really show too much for it, but a 1.39 whip. Listen, those are good numbers. And the 1.39 whip will show you he's been working out of danger, so maybe that ERA, a little bit of luck involved, as there are with a lot of baseball statistics. But on the other side, when you look at Ray's stats, he's 4-2 with a 3.77 ERA, very respectable. 1.34 whip, very respectable. And 59 2/3 innings pitched. He's only struck out 42 batters, so he's not really a huge strikeout guy. A righty, so plays into the Philadelphia Phillies' ability to hit righties better. He's given up 8 home runs. Cristopher Sanchez has only given up 1 home run. So I don't know. You look at that and you say the overall numbers are somewhat similar. The actual matchup, when you dive deeper into it, is advantage Sanchez. And the Phillies look like the better team than the Brewers. They have a 61.6% chance to win according to ESPN Analytics. They're minus 170 on the money line. They're favored in the game, and that makes total sense. So what are you going to be looking for over the course of the actual game? Well, first of all, don't give Rhys Hoskins any more home runs. Congrats, buddy. You got your one. Now it's back to being enemies, back to rooting for the Phillies, back to we'll give you your ovation before the game or before you're at bat. But the second you do something now, all right, gloves are off. They might be actual boos coming down if you give up another home run to Rhys Hoskins. So keep an eye on him. He's leading their team in homers with 10 now. You also have to look out for William Contreras, who he had a bit of a quiet night last night, as a lot of hitters on the Brewers team did, but he's batting .311. He has 44 RBIs. He is a problem. And they have guys in this lineup that are still dangerous. Don't let what Zach Wheeler did last night fool you. This Milwaukee Brewers team can hit the baseball. So my thing would be, I'd imagine to beat the Brewers tonight, you're going to have to score more than 3 runs, even though I think Sanchez has been really good. And the Phillies offense, once again, didn't really get to a spot where they were putting up like a really gaudy number with the amount of runs they scored. So I'm going to look at some guys in the Phillies offense to step up. Bryce Harper, we're going to talk about this. He just got a big award. I'll tell you what that award is in our final segment, but he had a really good month last month, just to give you a clue. And I'd like to see more out of him than what we saw yesterday. I mean, it was a slow day at the plate for Bryce Harper, and, he does not take very kindly to going, what do you go, 1 for 3 yesterday. And the 1 for 3, sure, like that sounds, solid. You're getting solid numbers out of that if you go 1 for 3 every day. For Bryce Harper, that's not enough. He's kind of starting to get to a point where he might be on the verge of breaking out. He hasn't been playing bad. It's crazy to say because of the award he just won, but I think he could sustain how he played in May through June, but I'm looking for him to be big tonight. Kyle Schwarber, 0 for 4 last night. It is June, and we haven't really seen June Schwarber yet. He's going to start hitting home runs at some point. Maybe he runs into one tonight. And the other guy that I'm looking at that I really think will be an asset to the Philadelphia Phillies, if Dahl gets the start again, which I don't know if he will or not, but lefty bat, seeing a righty again, might be a situation where that heat check for Dahl continues. He was a good major league hitter when he was with the Rockies. He was a great minor league hitter earlier this year. Maybe that train continues. So those are the guys that I'm watching. It's typically all lefties against righties. So that's my preview of tonight's game for just the sake of comparing these two teams. I know you look at them and say, okay, they're both 7 games up in their division. The Brewers having a 7-game lead over the Cubs and the Cardinals. The Phillies holding it over the Braves. The difference is the Phils have 6 more wins on the year. You can't just look at divisional difference. You have to look at quality of team. The Phillies have a plus 101 run differential. The Brewers plus 61. Respectful, but 40 more runs in the Phillies' favor compared to their opponents than the Brewers compared to their opponents. I watched the Brewers last night, and I say that's a good baseball team, but it's not a great baseball team. It may be a great baseball team with some additions, or when they get guys back, or when they get everything rolling a little bit. Rhys Hoskins just came off the injured list recently, but they're not on the level of the Phillies. So I don't know. This is why the argument of the Phillies can't beat good teams doesn't hold water. They're better than these good teams too. They're just better than basically everybody. So it's something to keep an eye on tonight, is the overarching theme of, can the Phillies beat good teams? And they haven't really had the chance to show that very often. They have a prime opportunity, and they proved it last night, and the hope is they'll prove it again tonight. I'm excited for it. And I'm also excited to see the crowd's reaction to the second night of Rhys Hoskins, and just kind of get a feel if the vibe changes in there a little bit now that we've already seen him hit a home run and everything. Is there a little bit less of a warm welcome for it? It'll still be innovation, but it won't be as raucous, I don't think, tonight. So that's all the stuff about what's currently going on the field, but a couple things that are adjacent to the field, we'll call it, an award and an anniversary I got to tell you about coming up, because we've got some special things that have happened and happened a couple years ago that we need to mention for the Philadelphia Phillies. We'll do that coming up as we continue today's episode. And I also want to tell you about eBay Motors, our title sponsor first. Passion, drive, and patience. That's the formula for winning championships. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle. They've got stuff to level it up to peak performance too. Listen to this: superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, all that kind of stuff. Even more. I mean, they've got millions of parts, but you might be into speed. You might be into power, you might be into style, and people have different needs, different vehicles. eBay Motors has you covered with all of that. Over 122 million parts for your vehicle. You're always going to find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Okay, some honors to hand out. And congratulations are in order for one Bryce Harper, who you can probably put together from the way I talked about in the last segment. He was awarded National League Player of the Month honors for the month of May. That's honestly kind of shocking to me, because with where his ceiling is at as a baseball player, maybe this is just me. Maybe this is a major brain fart, and I'm so day-to-day with this team that I don't really see over the course of a month the outstanding play that guys have been putting on the field. I know everyone's good, and it may also just get lost in the shuffle of the team being good. But Bryce Harper had an outstanding month, the best month of any National League position player, and he won the award. I didn't even think it was that great of a month for him. I thought it was a good month for Bryce Harper. But that should show you where his ceiling is, right? A good month for Bryce Harper is a great month for everybody else. A great month for Bryce Harper is unimaginable for a lot of other players in baseball. So congrats to Bryce on that. Turns out anyone who was worried about him not running to first base in San Francisco, because that became a topic some people wanted to complain about, seems like he's still pretty good even in spite of that, and the best player in the National League. I want that guy on my team every single day. I would like him to run to first base, but I'm not going to kill him if he doesn't. So that's a great honor for Bryce Harper. And I believe the only other monthly award winner, did Alec Boehm win Player of the Month? I know Ranger Suarez won Pitcher of the Month. I don't know if Boehm won Player of the Month, but the Phillies with multiple monthly award winners just shows you this team has some really great star power. And also, we are now 2 years past the date of when Rob Thompson took over the Philadelphia Phillies. And I know that there are criticisms of Rob Thompson out there, the way he handles the bullpen sometimes, issues with the lineup in the past. Bottom line, this guy's a stone cold winner. He is. He took over for Joe Girardi in a spot that was very difficult, and all he's done since is win at a 600 clip. He's just, I don't care how you get it done. I don't care about the demeanor. If you want him to be a little bit more vocal, a little bit more outspoken, you can want those things. But I want one thing for the Philadelphia Phillies. I want the Phillies to win baseball games. And then in the postseason, I want them to win championships. And Rob Thompson has not accomplished that last one yet, unless you count the National League championship, which is obviously not the final prize. But the dude just wins. And there's a clear, a stark difference between the day he took over and everything past and everything before for a decade. It's not all Rob Thompson because they had talent, but he's been the guy to help put the talent in the right spots. And what a great 2 years it's been. It's also crazy. I talked about Rhys Hoskins' final game before last night being in the World Series and how long ago that feels. It feels way longer than 2 years that Rob Thompson had taken over for Joe Girardi. But I guess that's what happens when you have so many big moments and so much success and stuff like that. It makes you enjoy and not want to rush through the season. It makes you remember more and feel like it's been a longer time. So I guess that's all a good thing. But congrats to Rob Thompson on 2 years and the work he's been doing. Congrats to Bryce Harper on National League Player of the Month honors. And now back to the grindstone. Why don't we go win some more awards? How about that, boys? And win some more baseball games. They'll have a chance to do that tonight. And we'll all be watching. And also we'll be watching a particular number 12 on the Milwaukee Brewers once again, because who doesn't love Rhys Hoskins? Come on. That's all for today's episode of Locked On Phillies. Thank you so much for being with us. Appreciate you checking us out if this is the first time. Appreciate you coming back if you're a continued listener or viewer. Please make sure, if you haven't done so yet, rate, review wherever you get your podcasts, subscribe to the YouTube. All of that good stuff really helps us out here on Locked On Phillies. So thank you so much. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I will talk to you next time on the next episode of Locked On Phillies.